Okay, so Prince William just did something that has sent shockwaves through every single corridor of Buckingham Palace, and I have to say, when you hear what he has done and who he has done it to and what Charles is now being forced to decide because of it, you are going to understand immediately why the atmosphere inside that palace right now is unlike anything we have seen in years. William has privately told King Charles that Camilla will not be attending Diana's 30th anniversary memorial in 2027. She is not invited, she is not welcome, and the decision is not up for discussion. And Charles, the man caught between his wife and the memory of the mother of his sons, now has to make the most heartbreaking choice of his entire reign. So, stay with me.
Some voices are born to rule. Power is not given. This is the royal voice, where the crown speaks.
So, let us get into it. So here's the thing. Diana's 30th anniversary is coming. August 31st, 2027. 30 years since the world stood still. 30 years since a phone rang at Balmoral in the early hours of the morning and two young boys lost their mother forever. 30 years since William, 15 years old, standing in front of the entire world, walked behind his mother's coffin and carried a grief that no child should ever have to carry in public. And William has been quietly planning something for months now. A memorial, a proper one, the kind Diana deserves, the kind the institution never gave her when she was alive. And he has been building it entirely on his own terms, with his own team, in his own space. And one of those terms, one of the conditions he has made absolutely non-negotiable, is that Camilla will not be there. Not left off the list by accident, not forgotten in some administrative mix-up, deliberately, intentionally, permanently excluded. And the moment Charles was told, everything inside that palace changed. Okay, so let me take you back to where this all started, because you need to understand the full picture here. William did not wake up one morning and make this decision on a whim. This has been building for years, decades even. And if you want to understand why William feels so absolutely certain about this, you have to go back to 1997. You have to go back to Balmoral. You have to go back to what those two boys experienced in the days after their mother died. Because here is the thing that most people do not fully appreciate about William. He was 15 years old when Diana died. 15. And in the days that followed, instead of being allowed to grieve privately as a child, he was surrounded by the machinery of the palace. The advisors, the communications teams, the protocols, the carefully managed statements. And what he felt in those days, what he has spoken about privately to people close to him, was a sense that the institution cared more about managing the story of Diana's death than about two boys who had just lost their mother. He watched Diana's memory get managed, controlled, packaged. Her rooms were cleared. Her staff were reassigned. Her name was used when it was useful and put away when it was not. And William made himself a promise in those early years of grief. When he had the power to protect her memory, when he was in a position where nobody could override him, he would do what the institution never did. He would protect Diana on his own terms. Completely, without compromise. And honestly, that promise is exactly what we are watching him keep right now. So here is what happened. According to sources very close to the situation, William began planning Diana's 30th anniversary memorial back in January of this year. He assembled a small private team, just 4 people he trusts completely, at Kensington Palace on the morning of January 14th. No courtiers from Buckingham Palace, no representatives from Camilla's household, no official palace communications staff, just William's own people, in his own building, planning his mother's memorial the way he wants it planned. And what they came up with is genuinely extraordinary. A 2-day event. Day 1, a private family service at St. James's Palace on the evening of August 30th, 2027, the night before the actual anniversary. Intimate, personal, only the people who truly knew Diana, her family, her closest friends, the people she loved and who loved her back. Day 2, a massive public memorial at Kensington Palace Gardens, open to everyone. Flowers, music, tributes, a brand new permanent installation that William commissioned himself. Sources describe it as a garden of remembrance with a sculptural element that captures something essential about who Diana actually was as a person, not just as a princess. It sounds beautiful. It sounds exactly right. It sounds like the tribute Diana has deserved for 30 years. And when the guest list for the private family service was drawn up, Camilla's name was not on it. Now, William did not leave Camilla's name off quietly and hope nobody noticed. That is not how he handled this. He went directly to Charles, a private meeting at Windsor Castle, February 3rd, just the two of them. No aides in the room, no advisors listening, just a son and his father having the most difficult conversation they have had in years. And William sat across from Charles and told him clearly, Camilla will not be at the memorial. I need you to know that, and I need you to respect it. Think about what that moment must have felt like for both of them. For William, this is the moment he has been building toward his entire adult life. The moment where his grief finally has enough institutional weight behind it that he can say this is how it will be and have the power to make it stick. He is 43 years old, he is the Prince of Wales, he is the future King of England, and he is telling his father, who is the current king, that his decision about his mother's memorial is final. And for Charles, I have to say I cannot imagine a harder thing to sit with. Because Charles loves Camilla. He has always loved Camilla. He chose her at enormous personal cost. He waited for her, he married her, he made her queen, and here is his son, the person whose opinion matters more to him than almost anyone else in the world, sitting across from him and telling him that the woman he loves is not welcome at one of the most significant days in their family's entire history. And Charles did not immediately say yes, and he did not immediately say no. He sat there in silence. And that silence has been echoing through the palace ever since, because here is the thing about Charles's silence that day. It was not the silence of a man who disagreed. It was not the silence of a man preparing to fight back. It was the silence of a man who understood, who felt the weight of what his son was saying, who knew, somewhere deep inside him, that William was not wrong. Okay, so now here is where it gets really interesting, because Camilla found out about this conversation, and the way she found out is almost as revealing as the conversation itself. It was not Charles who told her. Charles went home that evening and said nothing to his wife. He sat with William's words for 3 days without telling Camilla what had been said. 3 days. And Camilla only found out because one of her own household staff overheard a conversation between 2 of William's aides and brought the information back to her. 3 days of silence from her own husband. Think about what that communicates. Charles did not rush to reassure Camilla. He did not immediately go to her and say, William has said something upsetting, but do not worry, I will sort it out. He sat with it. He turned it over. He let it settle. And that 3-day silence told Camilla something about where Charles's heart actually is on this question that no conversation could have told her more clearly. And her reaction when she found out? Sources describe it as controlled fury, not tears, not collapse, not a dramatic outburst. Controlled, cold, calculated. She did not confront Charles immediately. She waited. She thought carefully about her position. She prepared her argument. And then she went to him with something she had clearly been building in those intervening days since she discovered what William had said. Her argument was this. She is the Queen of England. She is Charles's wife and his partner in everything. She has spent 20 years absorbing public hostility with dignity and grace. She has performed every royal duty asked of her without complaint, without self-pity, without a single public expression of the enormous personal cost it has taken to be who she is in this family. And to exclude her from a major royal memorial, to publicly signal that she is not welcome at her own husband's side, would be a humiliation not just to her personally, but to the office of Queen Consort itself. It would tell the British public and the watching world that the current queen is somehow not a full and legitimate member of the royal family. And that, she argued, would cause damage to the monarchy that could not be repaired. And okay, I want to be fair here, because that argument has real weight. Camilla is not wrong that excluding her sends a message, a very powerful message, about her place in this family, about whether her years of service have counted for anything, about whether being crowned queen actually means what it is supposed to mean. But here is the thing, and this is where William's position becomes something that is almost impossible to argue against. The 30th anniversary memorial is not a state occasion. It is not an official constitutional engagement. It is not something that appears on the royal calendar as a formal duty. It is a private family tribute to William's mother, and William has the absolute right, as Diana's son, as the person who loved her and lost her and has been carrying that loss for 30 years, to decide who stands beside him on that day. And Princess Anne agrees with him, completely and without reservation. Because pay attention here, Anne has been part of these conversations from the very beginning. When William first started planning in January, Anne was one of the first people he called. Not an advisor, not a courtier. Anne, his aunt, the woman who has given 50 years of her life to this institution and who understands its bones better than anyone alive. And Anne's view on Camilla's attendance is even clearer and more absolute than William's own. Sources say Anne told Charles in a separate private conversation, a conversation that happened at Gatcombe Park on February 9th, 6 days after William's Windsor Castle meeting, that Diana's memorial must belong to Diana's family and Diana's friends, not to the reigning household, not to palace protocol, not to anyone's feelings about their position or their title or their sense of what they are owed. Diana's day, Diana's people, and that is the end of it. And when Anne says something with that kind of finality, it changes the entire landscape of the conversation. Because Anne does not say things she does not mean. She does not threaten and then retreat. She does not stake out a position and then soften it when pushed back against. When Anne draws a line, it stays drawn. And she has drawn this one as clearly as any line she has ever drawn in 50 years of service. So now you have William on one side, Anne on the other side, both of them saying the same thing with total certainty, and Charles is standing in the middle trying to find a path that does not destroy something irreplaceable on one side or the other. And here is the impossible mathematics of the choice in front of him. If Charles sides with Camilla and insists she attends the memorial, William will not back down. Sources are absolutely clear on this point. William will not attend a memorial for his own mother if Camilla is present. He will not stand in that space with her beside him, which means the world gets the extraordinary and devastating spectacle of Diana's own son refusing to attend his mother's 30th anniversary memorial because his father chose his wife over his son's grief. That is not just a family crisis, that is a constitutional and reputational catastrophe for the monarchy that would echo for generations. And if Charles sides with William and tells Camilla she is not welcome at the memorial, Camilla will experience a humiliation so profound and so public that it may permanently fracture their marriage. 20 years of enduring public hatred, 20 years of being measured against Diana and found wanting, 20 years of trying to earn a place in a family that never fully opened its door to her, and then to be told by her own husband, because his son said so, that she cannot stand beside him on one of the most important days of the year. That is a wound that does not close. There is no clean path through this. There is no solution that costs nobody anything. Charles has to lose something he loves no matter which way he turns. But here is the detail that I find absolutely extraordinary about how William has handled all of this. He has not been sitting still waiting for Charles to make up his mind. He has been building right now. Today, the memorial is being constructed around Charles's decision rather than waiting for it. The St. James's Palace service has already been provisionally booked for August 30th, 2027. The public memorial at Kensington Palace has already been designed by William's team. The permanent garden installation is already in development with an artist William selected personally. The charities Diana supported have already been contacted about participating. The musicians have already been approached. By the time Charles reaches a final decision, the only thing left to determine is the guest list for the private service. Everything else is already in place. William is not asking for permission. He never was. He is presenting his father with a memorial that is already built and telling him the only question left is whether you are going to stand beside me or beside her on that night. And I keep coming back to this because the way William has executed this strategy tells you so much about who he is becoming as a future king. He has not gone to the press. He has not briefed journalists off the record. He has not allowed anything to leak in a way that creates a public war with his father before Charles has had the chance to make his decision privately. Everything that has come out has come through palace sources in ways that cannot be directly traced back to William. He is protecting himself while making his position completely unmovable. That is not the behavior of someone acting on emotion. That is someone who has been preparing for this moment for 30 years and is executing it with extraordinary precision. Now I want to talk about Catherine for a moment, because her role in all of this is one of the most interesting parts of the story, and it has gone almost completely unnoticed in everything being written and said about this situation. Catherine has been publicly invisible in all of these conversations. Her name has not come up. She has not been seen to take a position. She has been completely silent. And that silence is one of the most deliberate and intelligent things she has done in years, because Catherine understands something crucial. The moment this becomes a Catherine versus Camilla story, the moment the press decides that Catherine is the one pushing William to exclude his stepmother, the entire narrative shifts. Suddenly, William is not a grieving son protecting his mother's memory. He is a husband doing what his wife told him to do. And that framing destroys the moral authority of everything William is trying to achieve. So Catherine has stepped completely back. She is letting William own this. She is supporting him privately. Sources say she has been his emotional anchor through every single difficult conversation with Charles, but publicly she is nowhere in this story. And that discipline, that understanding of how the story needs to be shaped, that restraint when every instinct might be to speak, that is why Catherine is going to be a genuinely extraordinary queen. Okay, so let me tell you where things actually stand right now. This week. Because the situation is still very much alive and unresolved, Charles has not given William a final answer. The conversation that began on February 3rd at Windsor Castle is still ongoing 4 months later. Sources describe the atmosphere around Charles right now as one of the most painful and pressured periods of his entire reign. He is consulting people he has known for decades, he is speaking to senior members of the Privy Council, he is talking to friends who remember Diana, he is turning this over and over and over, trying to find an answer that does not cost him everything. And Camilla is watching it happen. She is watching her husband seek counsel from everyone around him about whether she should be allowed to stand beside him at a memorial. She is watching the man who chose her, who fought for her, who waited decades for her, who put a crown on her head, sit in meeting after meeting trying to figure out if his son is right to shut her out. And every day that passes without a decision is its own kind of answer, because Charles is not a man who delays when he knows what the right thing to do is. The fact that he has been sitting with this for months tells Camilla, and tells everyone who is watching closely, that part of him knows William is right. Part of him knows that Diana's memorial should belong to Diana's family. Part of him knows that this is one place where his love for Camilla and his duty to his sons cannot both be honored at the same time. And that knowledge, sitting there unspoken between Charles and Camilla every single day, is doing damage that no official decision can undo, because Camilla already knows what Charles is thinking. She can see it in his silences. She can feel it in the way he holds himself when the subject comes up. She can read 30 years of loving this man, and she knows. And what she knows is breaking something between them that may not fully heal regardless of how he ultimately decides. Now, I want to ask you something, because I think this is the question at the heart of everything. What would Diana want? If you could ask her, if she could see what is happening right now inside that palace, the conversations, the tensions, the impossible choice facing Charles, what would she say about all of it? Would she want Camilla excluded? Would she want her sons fighting with their father over her memory 30 years after she is gone? Would she want the 30th anniversary of her death overshadowed by a battle over a guest list? And here is where I land on that question every single time I think about it. Diana spent her entire life fighting for dignity, for the right to be herself, for the right to have her pain acknowledged and her story told honestly and her memory protected by the people who loved her. She spent years feeling like the institution controlled her, managed her, packaged her for its own purposes. And William is fighting right now for exactly the principle Diana spent her whole life fighting for: the right to be remembered on your own terms, the right to have your story belong to the people who truly loved you, the right to have one day, just one, that is not managed by the machinery of the palace for anyone else's benefit. That is not petty. That is not cruel. That is a son who has been carrying his mother for 30 years and who is finally strong enough to say, this is for her, just for her, and I will not compromise it for anyone. So here's where we are. The memorial is being built, William's team is working, the date is set, the location is booked, the installation is in development, everything is moving forward, and there is one conversation still unfinished, one decision still unmade, one question that Charles has to answer before August 31st, 2027 arrives and the world turns its eyes to London to remember the princess who changed everything. Will he stand beside his son, or will he stand beside his wife? Those are the only two options. There is no middle ground. There is no diplomatic solution that satisfies both. There is no carefully worded compromise that gets everyone in the room without someone paying an enormous price. Charles has to choose. And the choice he makes will tell us, and will tell history, more about who he really is than anything else he has done or will ever do as king. Camilla may be the Queen of England, she may wear the crown, she may sit beside Charles at every state occasion and every public appearance for the rest of his reign. But on August 31st, 2027, i.e. on Diana's day, on the day the world stops to remember the woman who captured every heart it touched, William has made something crystal clear. There is only one woman whose name belongs in that space, and she has been gone for 30 years, and her son has spent every one of those 30 years making sure that nobody, not the palace, not the institution, not anyone, gets to take her story away from her, and he is not about to stop now. The decision is coming. Charles cannot hold it off forever, and when it comes, we will be here. That is all for today here at The Royal Voice. If this is your first time with us, make sure you subscribe, because this is exactly the kind of story we cover. The real story, the one happening behind the doors they keep closed. And I will see you in the next one.